Hi there everyone. I posted a video last night about the DPS of the different classes, and after I posted it here on the forum and stuff, I got a lot of questions to basically ask, so I test different things, and also some feedback on how I played and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I decided that today what I would do is I would properly break down all the damage of different skills. So this is literally the damage that you do in different guild raids, in guild raids. And yes, this should answer all questions. I'm going to just literally talk through this in my video. I'm not going to show any gameplay whatsoever, just talking through this, explain what I did, and how I got to some numbers at the end. And I actually found out a couple of really cool things, which I just had no idea before, that made... I now know why Scorching Arrows does so much damage, so I'll get to that. Anyway, so first up, I tested out, so this was the original testing I did, that was with the raid damage and the different percentages and how many millions I did, and then some other test stuff. Now I go into these skills here. So first up, we've got the wizard skills here. This is testing. There are actually two different states. I didn't go into all the details of this before. I mentioned it actually in the last video, but basically there's two states. There's without a damage potion and with a damage potion. The reason why they're two different states is because the static damage on skill runes doesn't get multiplied when your damage increases, but the percentage damage does. So it makes a big difference for some things. So if we just look at, for example, Mark of Ignition. So this is without a damage potion, this is with a damage potion. There's almost no difference whatsoever because all the damage there is static damage. It's actually only like 7% fire, so yeah, there's like hardly any increase. But for other ones, there's a huge increase. Like for example, Water Beam, 3 million to 4.2 million. So yes, I've got the two states here. I've got without damage potion, with the damage potion, and then I've got the 200% elements here, and it's again without and then with. So with damage potion is really, that's the state you're going to be playing with whenever you do hard content, whenever you're actually trying to do a lot of damage in guild raids, you're going to be using a damage potion. So really you want to focus on these numbers more than these numbers, but yeah, I'm going to show them and yeah, go through it now. So that's starting off with the wizard's skills. Now empowered flame armor, that's one which I got pointed out to me by Wizard of DFS, and I realised, oh yeah, I really should have used that. Definitely use it at the beginning of your run and then go in to the combat with other skills, but actually it's not very good overall. So this is the damage, the total damage from all the ticks of it. That's all 41. 41 ticks of it does this much damage in total. So as you can see, if we look at the numbers here, it does 2 million, which is about the same as Flame Cannon, but if you consider that you can only use it every 13 seconds, whereas Flame Cannon you can use every more like 4 seconds, 5 seconds, that kind of time. So yeah, actually, to your overall damage output, it's not going to be adding that much on, and the fact that it has no animation time is nice, but actually you have better options. So Empowered Frozen Sphere, here it's actually it's about 2/3. All water damage is with Master of Ice. So yeah, this is with Master of Ice. It does about 2/3 of a Flame Cannon. And then Water Beam, you can see you do loads of damage here. That's because of that Master of Ice there. A lot more priority on this. Flame Breath, I wanted to talk about this. So I did not realise how good Flame Breath was. I looked at the numbers of it and I worked out it was about 400% fire, which I thought, oh, that's nice. So against a single target, could be kind of useful, but it's really a crowd killer. But no, it's a lot better than what I thought. So instead of doing 5 hits with the main damage and 3 hits with the sort of area of effect damage, instead it actually does 6 hits with the main damage and 4 hits with the area of effect damage. And what's more is it actually hits 3 times. So I don't know what it is. It's like 2.5 seconds or whatever, or 2 seconds before then it can hit the same target again. So it will actually put 3 lots of the 6 hits and 3 lots of the 4 hits. The other thing, so it actually does millions of damage. Yeah, it's crazy and an insanely good skill rune. I don't have it, so I haven't been able to test it. And I probably would have noticed this before if I had been. But yeah, so it does the same kind of amount as Water Beam, and so it really comes into its own when you go and have your high fire bonus. Healing Shrine, I said about how much damage this does. It is crazy. 11.8 million there, that's over the 11 hits, so it's doing about 1 million a hit. You can only use it 3 times, like 2 or 3 times in a guild raid, but that's adding on way more than other skills. If you look at, say, for example, Flame Breath is a really good one. Let's say you're doing it with a 50%, so you get 4.2 million per use. It's got a 10-second cooldown. Chances are you're going to be able to use that like maybe between 10 and 15 times. So that's going to be doing about say 50 million. Use Healing Shrine 3 times, it's going to be doing 36 million. Like Flame Breath's going to be your biggest killer, and this is like 70% of that. Like it's probably not the best example, but you get the idea. Basically, Healing Shrine is definitely one to go for if you have it, and you have it maxed with Master of Ice. It's very good. Just line it up and use it like that. Guardian Light I had a look at as well, and does about the same amount of damage as Flame Cannon and Powered Flame Armor. But of course it's light, which is harder to get to, and it has a longer cooldown. I think 20 seconds cooldown, so or 18 seconds, I can't remember. But anyway, longer cooldown, so you can't use it so frequently, so it's just not so good. So okay, I suppose I added this in just because there's some people who think Frostdrake's good, but that's how much damage it does. That's from all the attacks it does over the course of its life. It's like 7 or 8. It does 200,000, which compared to the other skills, it's no good. So I didn't bother testing the other ones. But anyway, taking a look at which skills to use, basically, Empowered Frozen Sphere you're always going to go for because you can spam that a lot. Well, I know, I say that actually, not in the most optimal build. So, because you can spam a lot of skills, say Water Beam here, Flame Breath and Flame Cannon, they all have fairly low cooldown. You can actually flip between the 3 of them quite nicely, and as you can see, all 3 of them hit very high amount of damage. Healing Shrine you definitely want to have in there, and Master of Ice you've got to have. So that takes up 2 skill slots. You don't want to be doing any switching. So the 3 skill slots left, I would use Flame Cannon, Water Beam and Flame Breath. Those are definitely the 3 biggest hitters there, and Empowered Frozen Sphere would be good because you can use it more frequently, and there is time when you have when you use these 3 longer cooldown skills. There's time between when you could use a skill, but yeah, it's actually more efficient to use those 3 skills as opposed to trying to slip in this instead of one of them, like instead of Flame Cannon, and then use it more. It's not going to work. So yes, and then when you've got higher elemental damage, that becomes even more apparent because the fire skills get more damaging. So the Flame Breath and the Flame Cannon, they both get higher. So you can see if you compare the damage here and the damage here, Flame Cannon really comes out. So I don't have Flame Breath, and Empowered Frozen Sphere is definitely the way to go. Actually, yes, Empowered Frozen Sphere is definitely the way to go. Better than Flame Armor, even though that does double the damage just because of the cooldown. It's much better to get in loads of Empowered Frozen Spheres rather than these Flame Armors. But yeah, start off with 2 stacks of Flame Armor before you then go in. And yeah, when it all comes together, and so I did a setup with Flame Breath, Water Beam, Flame Cannon, Healing Shrine and Master of Ice. I played it for 60 seconds, Damage Potion and 200% Elements, and I got 260 million damage. That was how much I could get. So moving on to the night one, we've got a lot less damage than the wizard ones actually, mainly because lots of these are water and they get a huge bonus. I wanted to point out here, so Greater Fire Maim, this is actually more powerful than Empowered Fireblade once you get your fire high. So if you look here when you've got low fire stats, it's clearly less. But then when you get high fire stats, it's actually a little bit more there, and then yeah, a lot more when you get the damage potion, because all of this is percent damage. It's the base damage gets turned into fire. So yeah, if you have a high fire bonus, use Greater Fire Maim. For PvP too, definitely use this one. It'll be much nicer than Empowered Fireblade for damage. So Flying Blades is obviously more powerful. However, you wouldn't in reality want to use this for guild raids or when you're trying to do a high amount of damage in a short amount of time, because Lord of Winter only lasts 7 seconds. But yeah, so that's sort of looking at that there. Bad Meteor Dash is just pointless, that's rubbish. But you probably want to use that to close in on the boss as one of the skills. Frozen Shield as well, that's the sort of damage there. I'm not really going to go through much in the night because, yeah, I'll just point out the main things. So Ember Glow is pretty much pointless. I wouldn't use any spikes, they're just all rubbish. Volcano Eruption is a huge damage dealer here. You can see on the damage here. Damage Potion doesn't change it by much. It's mainly the element there. But yes, does tons of damage. You want to make sure you place it right on top of the boss. He actually likes to move away when you go close to him, which is a little bit annoying. You have to kind of chase after him. So trying to this on him is tricky, what I would suggest is you to get the boss into a corner and then try to basically push it against that corner as you use loads of volcano eruptions. That's what I found most effective. Burning Aura. Now this really came as a surprise because it's actually 5 hits and I forgot about the base damage, so when I looked at it I thought, oh yeah, I know it's quite powerful, but it's not that powerful. Actually it's very, very good. Especially when you get high fire bonus, it really comes out there. Affected, yeah, it's affected a fair amount by a damage potion, but not massively. That's mainly the base damage there. And yeah, so 5 hits, which is why it gets good damage. And it's got 10-second cooldown? Yeah, 10-second cooldown. So it's a nice spammable skill. Freezing Aura as well, it's got the more damage because the Lord of Winter. It's actually very similar, so it just really depends on whether you've got more fire or water bonus. And Wild Swing, I have mentioned many times that Wild Swing is definitely the most consistent damage output from a knight. That was before Volcano Eruptions come now, and that's actually really quite good. But yeah, Wild Swing and Burning Aura are the 2 skills which really stand out as the spammable ones for increasing your damage output. If you compare it to Empowered Fireblade here, it actually at every single level hits more than Empowered Fireblade. It's more powerful than it. It's just that if you have a high fire bonus and a low nature bonus, as lots of people do, Empowered Fireblade hits harder. So yes, I did have Empowered Fireblade on my setup. Oh, sorry, Greater Fire Maim, but I didn't actually use it. Probably what I would choose to do, because I didn't use Empowered Meteor Dash when I did the test. I did it when the boss was enraged and I just made myself invincible, so he didn't move at all. But yeah, in reality, I probably have that as a 5th skill. So the other skills I would use are Volcano Eruption, obviously, because this is probably your best one. Wild Swing, Burning Aura, and then oh yes, the one not in here, Enrage, gives you auto crit, because critting is a big problem, and that's mainly why your damage output is lower than a wizard. Other than obviously the skills do more, but yeah, it's because you're not critting. So yeah, you spam Wild Swing and then use the other skills whenever they come off cooldown, which is Burning Aura, Volcano Eruption, and Enrage. So bring that all together. I used those skills. I used Damage Potion, 200% elements, and all that kind of stuff on a boss that was still, and I did 177 million. Now going to the Archer one here, I'm going to pause a second. I needed a moment to make sure I knew what I was talking about. Okay, so before I go into the all the stuff down here, I just wanted to mention first a few of the Archer skills, because that's all talking about the basic attack build. So this is the Archer skills, and I had it asked for me to compare this against Wizard skills for PvP in terms of one-shots and all that kind of stuff. Now these Archer skills, they're all times 1.56 from the sniper bonus, but no bonus from Mark of Death, because in PvP you wouldn't really use Mark of Death on an enemy. So yeah, if you you can directly compare these to Flame Cannon, because that's basically our one-shot. Flame Breath and Healing Shrine, I'll get on to in a second. So Empowered Flame Cannon, Empowered Rapid Fire, it's like 2.25 million here and 1.6 million there. You can see it's quite clearly a lot more. Yeah, it's a lot more. Oh yeah, you can't have damage potions, sorry, so it's 3 million if you have 200% here, and it's 3.8 million. So it's definitely quite a bit more, but that is with the sniper bonus, and you may not be able to get the full sniper bonus if you're meeting someone, because they may teleport right next to you or whatever like that. But yeah, it's definitely more, and this is, you know, proven tested in the guild raids. Then I had a look at the other ones. So Water Volley is slightly more damage than Empowered Rapid Fire. It really depends on whether you have higher fire or water bonus. Water Volley is kind of nicer as well because it's got a shorter animation. Then I had a look at Stone Arrow and Dark Arrow. So Stone Arrow is basically your next highest damage skill, and it's pretty damaging. It's about the same as an Empowered Frozen Sphere when you've got the Master of Ice active. Not a one-shot, but definitely good damage in PvP. Probably not high enough to really bother with anything, because this doesn't have any extra effect, it's just the damage. So you may as well just use Volley all the time, because that's got a really low cooldown. Oh, and that's one thing as well, which I always try to point out. People assume that you can just use Flame Cannon on everyone in PvP. It's got a 10-second cooldown, And yeah, if you use it on one person and then go to fight other people, you won't be able to use it for quite a while. Whereas volley has a 4-second cooldown. You can literally spam that on everyone. But anyway, I'm not going to get ranty. And then Dark Arrow is the other one. So this is an important skill in PvP because it does a stun for 2 seconds, which isn't very long. But yeah, if you hit Dark Arrow and then a volley on them, you're pretty much guaranteed a kill. And if you compare the damage here, it's about 1/3 of the damage output of an empowered a volley. So yeah, if you consider that a one-shot, then you'll be doing about 1/3 of the health with a Dark Arrow. And suddenly, Dark Arrow, you do a few shots of basic attacks and then a volley. You can fit that in the stun, and you should be able to kill pretty much everyone. Just if a knight's put up a massive defense, or maybe if a wizard's using, they had protection bubble on, and then they use the healing shrine, they can probably survive. But yeah, that would definitely be my approach to wizards, because Rain of Light just has a really delayed stun. I would not want to use that. Almost all archers use that, and I actually found archers, as long as they're good, you know, I know they're players who know what they're doing. If they use Dark Arrow to stun me, it works really well, because I try and teleport next to them, hit them with Expel, and literally as I get teleport next to them, I get hit by Dark Arrow and stunned, and then they just kill me. So yeah, I would recommend that to any archers, and by the numbers here, yeah, it doesn't really, you know, make Dark Arrow stand out as amazing, but it does do some damage, certainly some damage. So yes, now I've talked about that. Now we're going to go into all this bit. Now this is the really interesting bit, breaking down basically how much damage per second archers can do. This is all, it's all with crits. Oh yeah, I should probably say, these two classes, when I did them, I did every single hit with auto crit. So yeah, if you actually compare by numbers, knight against wizard, it turns out that knights aren't much worse or anything. Like, they're pretty much the same, if not better. But because of the critting problem, that's why they come out worse in raids. And then yeah, when it comes to archers as well, they have the critting problem. So a lot of this is theoretical number work, because I couldn't test it so much, but what I did was I wrote it up in theory using a calculator, and I spent a lot of time getting the numbers right, and then I tested by doing individual shots and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, it's completely correct, I can promise you that. So yes, this is breaking it all down. So let's go through this bit first. So I talked about the basic attack damage does about 140,000 in the Silver Raid. You do about 4 basic attacks per second, so just doing flat basic attacks, that's 560,000 per second that you do. Now with the sniper bonus, adding that in, you do an extra 78,000, that's 56% of this per attack. It's active constantly, and then, yes, so then that's what it increases the damage per second by. Mark of Death, that's how much damage it adds on the attack. We're counting in the sniper bonus. It's active only 2/3 of the time because it's 10-second duration and about 15-second cooldown. So taking that into account, that's how much it goes up by per second. Now I actually, in all other bits where I use Mark of Death and stuff, I use it as 2/3 of the time. That's what the bonus is by. Now this is barbed arrows. These are without skill runes, I should say. The barbed arrows bonus. So it's constant of that once per second. Which is 75% of the damage. It's because it's 3 stacks of 25%. So yeah, it adds on about that much per second. So yeah, that's what you get. So you get 1.338 million. That is how much damage per second you will do if you have Mark of Death, Sniper, and barbed arrows on a target, and you're attacking just like that from range with no skill runes. Now we come in with skill runes, and this is where it starts to go crazy. So. Well, okay, we'll go crazy when we get to Scorching Arrows, but Empowered Blasting Shot, so you get about 1 proc every 5 seconds, and because there's 30 seconds of it active, you get 6 procs. So that's how much damage it does. We're talking about here the no damage pot, and then so 50% element, 200% element. So yep, those are the millions there. As you can see, that's over the course of the duration. You've got to remember it's got a long cooldown, so really what you're focusing on here is damage per second, which is, yeah, this much, which isn't too much really. It's not very much at all, but it's still kind of nice. and if you have a high fire bonus, that's quite nice of 0.5. If we take this one here, 0.55 per second, and if you compare that to something like, for example, Powered Frozen Sphere, 2 million, you're doing that every probably about every 1.5 to 2 seconds when you're trying to use that skill as much as possible. And this, you're doing that just from Empowered Blasting Shot. You're doing that much damage every 4 seconds. Scorching Arrows. Now, Scorching Arrows, I thought it stacked at up to 3, but actually it doesn't. So the base skill caps at 3 stacks, and so it only does 3 hits per second of 25%. The Scorching Arrows doesn't have that cap, so it's literally as many hits as you do per second. That's how many stacks go on, and those stacks hit over 3 times. So for every single attack you do, you'll get an extra 75%, which isn't elemental, and an extra 15,000, which is of fire. But that's hits 3 times, so it's 45,000 fire. And then there's, on each time it flares up, there's a chance of doing 40% fire. So yes, taking that all into account, and the fact that you do 4 basic attacks per second, yes, this is why it does so much damage. And so per attack, you add 1 million on, just from, if you have the 50% and stuff. And yeah, if you have 200% fire and you have damage pot active, you're adding 2 million per attack. And remember here, if we look here, that you're actually doing like 140,000, like with the basic attack, and you're adding 2 million on. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So per second, that's 8 million, which yeah, if you look at so this is 200% fire, remember, 8 million on, and yeah, compared to what a basic attacks do without any skill runes, yeah, you can see this is a ridiculous damage buff. Over the course of the 60 seconds, that's how much damage it adds on. So that's basically what it does over a guild raid. Yeah, I'm going to move on from that. Mark of Ignition as well, I pointed out as being a really good one, and yes, it's not as good as Scorching Arrows, but is definitely a huge damage buff. So per attack, it adds on a ton. That's the main thing, is it just basically adds on a ton of static fire damage on each attack you do. So per second, that's really quite a lot. This isn't 4 times because it's only active 2/3 of the time. And yeah, so it adds 1.5 million or 3 million per second. Per second. And over the course of the guild raid is more like 80, 170, that kind of amount. Now, Piercing Ice is a new one. It hits every 5 attacks, and so you get about 24 procs during the duration of it. It basically does almost exactly double what Empowered Blasting Shot does if you have the same elemental bonus. So yeah, it's really nice actually. And both Piercing Ice and Empowered Blasting Shot, you can stack the buffs, so you can actually have 2 of the buffs active at any one time. It doesn't double the base multiplier on Sniper, or give you like 200% piercing, whatever that would do. But yeah, it stacks the bonus from the skill runes, and what you want to do then is, so you use 2 of them, and then you wait until the buffs come off, then you put another one on, you can put a second one on, so you can have 2 active at any one time. So yeah, these actually do double what they do, which I didn't take into account later, but yeah, they do. So that's all the skill runes for the basic attack build, and now I break it down properly again for 50% elements, basically adding it up like I did here, but with the skill runes on it properly, and I say what they add on. And yeah, basically the total is 7.5 million. That's how much damage per second you do with a basic attack build with 50% elements, if you can just sit there attacking and from range. Then if you use a damage potion, that goes up to 8 million. If you have 200% elements, it's 12.7 million. And then with a damage potion, 13.7 million. It's a ridiculous amount. If you look at, for example, Knights here, well, I guess this is a kind of a bad example because that's without crits, without any crits. So yeah, you've got 177 million, but still 177 million if you had 200% elements, because that Knight example does. You do that in about, under 15 seconds, in under a quarter of the time. So yeah, you have 4 times the damage output. Is that right? No. Yes. Well, okay. I'm using an example here. What I should really do is just talk about this here, because that's an accurate number. So this is 60 seconds. I waited until the boss was enraged, so I didn't need to use decoy at all, and I sat back. I used literally the basic attack buffs, Empower Blasting Shot, Scorching Arrows, Mark of Ignition, Piercing Ice, and then I just sat there attacking. I replenished the things, and I did double stacks of Blasting Shot and Piercing Ice. Yeah, anything else to say? No, that was pretty much it. So, yeah, obviously you may not be able to just sit there attacking, and oh, there was definitely something I was going to say. But anyway, yeah, it basically does 4 times as much as a knight does, and so that's obviously with the same crit rate. Actually, no, knight's got a bit of a extra crit chance, but yeah, by numbers that's what it is. And if I was to work it out here, where it doesn't matter about crits for the other 2 classes, then it would definitely be well over double, because the wizard one, and slightly more than 4 times a knight, because the knight was getting auto crit on some of that. But yeah, anyway, those are the damage numbers. So that's what it's possible to reach if you have 200% of the elements of the skills you're using. A little thing with guild raids, basically your stats don't really matter too much. Your actual damage, crit damage, attack speed, all that kind of stuff is pretty much set. What your stats don't affect it. So what really does affect it is elemental stats, because they're literally multipliers to your damage. And so it's your skill runes and your elemental stats, and then the way you play it. So that's how you do good damage. And that's why, even though these characters actually had lower stats than some people may have, I was able to do this much damage without a dragon. I mean, 640 million with an archer was insane. Yes, so that's it there. And I hope that has given enough numbers to explain everything and go through it all and answer everyone's questions. There was definitely something I was going to say for archers. I'm going to pause for a second and try and think. Okay, it worked. I remembered. It was Scorching Arrows. So Scorching Arrows, because I said originally in the first video how it would be good to use a water volley when you get a chance when Mark of Ignition isn't active, but actually because Scorching Arrows, they have no cap on the stack limit, you can just literally do Scorching Arrows. That increases your damage output massively. So yeah, water volley is completely out of the question when you're doing PvE. Definitely for PvP you can use it for a one shot and everything, but basic attacks are the way to go. So those are the numbers, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry my audio went quiet. I don't know why it's a problem right now, but yeah, there's a small window where it's quiet in this video. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.